We love salads.
Yes, we do. Every Mediterranean restaurant that you walk into, you're gonna get about 10 salads before the waiter even says hello.
So we're gonna make a really cool carrot slaw with a twist.
A few twists, you'll see.
I wanted to do this carrot slaw because it's super quick and easy, and it only gets better as it soaks up the flavorful dressing it comes with.
So for this recipe, it calls for either cumin seed or ground cumin. If you are using ground cumin, you want to use about half as much, but if you have the seeds and you have to use the mortar and pestle to break it up, you want to use a little bit extra. So I'm going to use about 3/4 teaspoon, and you just want to get a circular motion and try to crush up the seeds as much as you can. They're not all going to get crushed, which is why you use a little extra. It starts to smell really nicely.
Why do you prefer using cumin seeds?
I think that they hold the flavor a little bit better and they pop more in a recipe. And we're also gonna heat them on the stove, which is totally gonna make them pop. All right, that's about it. So it's kind of half crushed and half not. The second spice that I have as seeds is caraway seeds, and I'm gonna use about 1/2 teaspoon of that. And again, if you have ground caraway, it works just as well. Just use half as much because it's going to be potent. Do the same thing with the cumin seeds, circular motion in your mortar and pestle.
Any reason you don't do this to all the spices together?
You totally can do all the spices together. I tend to keep things separate just so I can keep track of what I'm putting in my recipe. Break them up. These are a little harder to break up. I'm gonna give it another roll around. And there you go. For the dressing for this salad, we have to add a little bit of garlic. 1 to 2 cloves, depending on the size. I went with 2 in this instance because they're on the smaller side. The next thing we would do would be zest the lemons. We wanna wash your lemon, and then you wanna zest it before you juice it. And we do need the juice as well. Again, I'm a big believer in zest. I feel like it adds a really hyped up flavor profile. Next, I'm gonna juice that zested lemon. I'm gonna put this in a separate bowl because we're gonna use this later on in the recipe, but because we were dealing with the lemon, we might as well just finish that job right up. That's beautiful. Nice. I'm gonna put this aside for later. 1/2 teaspoon of paprika, 1/2 teaspoon of sugar. You can use a small saucepan.
Or we prefer the cast iron.
We love the cast iron, actually.
Yeah.
But you do need to heat this up, which takes a few minutes, and then it actually cooks evenly. It holds the heat evenly, but you have to get it up to that temperature first. We're gonna turn on the stovetop to about medium heat to heat up this cast iron pan. We're gonna give it 2 to 3 minutes. When the pan is sufficiently heated up, we're gonna line it with some olive oil. You wanna make sure you get enough in there to cover the bottom of the pan. You wanna give the olive oil a few seconds to heat up as well. And then we're going to add all of our flavors.
And guys, make sure it's not too hot. If it starts to smoke, lower the heat. Even remove the pan for a little bit. You don't want olive oil to smoke.
No, once it reaches that point, it actually changes the flavor profile, and it's actually unhealthy. Oil that you fry in is different than olive oil. So you just want to do this for about a minute or two, moving it around so nothing burns. You don't want the garlic to burn. That would add a majorly bitter flavor to the dish. And turn it off. The thing about cast iron is that it's gonna hold the heat, so it's still gonna cook a little bit. Keep moving it around, mixes the flavors together, heats them evenly, and there we go. Now we're gonna let it cool.
Okay, let's chop some herbs. So I like to prepare everything before I start mixing, but it's important that you keep the grating of the carrot to the end because carrots tend to lose their flavor and their color very soon after you grate them.
So we tend to prepare everything else first. She's gonna start with the mint, and I'm gonna start with flat leaf parsley. So you need to clean them, pull their leaves off of their stems. You know, this is kind of where you can use your own personal preference. If you want a little more parsley or a little more mint, depends on your flavor profile.
A good way to chop herbs is just to kind of bunch it up like that. Careful with your fingers, kind of tuck them in.
Use your knuckle as a guide, so you never cut your tips that way. Now we can mix these together in our trusty little bowl. Clear off our cutting board. I tend to buy the organic carrots. They have 10 times more flavor and nutritional value than commodity carrots. And I tend to cut the bottom tip off, but I leave the top on, so when you're grating, you have something to hold on to and you don't end up grating your fingers.
Let's grate it. There you have it.
There you have it.
Leftover tip. We're gonna put it in our mixing bowl.
So now we're gonna add our fresh herbs. Grab our cast iron pot over there, scrape all that in. Beautiful. Next, we're gonna add our lemon juice. 3/4 teaspoon of that harissa, a little pinch of salt. And you can start with less salt, because after you mix it and you taste the flavors, you can always add more. But if it's too salty, then you gotta go grate more carrots. You may wanna add more olive oil if you find it dry. Sometimes the carrots are juicy, sometimes they're not. Just gonna give it a nice mix. Gonna add a little olive oil. It looks delicious, smells good. And the last thing we're gonna add is the crumbled feta. Now, there's a lot of different kinds of feta out there. We went with a Greek organic feta. It calls for about 100 grams, but you can also see how much feta you wanna put in. Crumble it up, and there you have it. And you can garnish with lemon wedges, some extra parsley, some extra mint.
Forget about all that.
Let's eat. Pretty great for carrots.
All right, guys, you'll find a link to this recipe in the description below. And if you want to learn how to cook more quick and easy recipes, make sure you subscribe. See ya.
Ciao.